Before we start, could you give a brief background about yourself, how you got into teaching?
I actually draw from a lot of my life experience because as I've lived as an expat in different countries where I've not known the local language, like Indonesia, Japan, Sweden. And in all these countries, I noticed that when I started speaking their language, the local language, I suddenly started making new friends, making new connections, and enjoying the place so much more and absorbing the place so much more. From there on, I was just immersed in learning about people, learning about cultures wherever I'm situated. And it was a very big driving factor for me. Otherwise, one can feel very isolated in these countries. If you don't make this effort of learning the language and connecting to the locals, because otherwise you're just the English speaking person in your own circle, in your own bubble, and you don't get that local flavor of the place.
It's a
Different
different
experience. Yeah. Have you ever felt that in whenever you've been abroad?
I think so. It limits you to your own community,
Yeah.
and that doesn't expose you to the different global cultures that you can experience.
Yes, absolutely. In Japan and in Sweden, I got the opportunity to teach a language as a teacher, not the local language, but through English, I got to connect with the locals in Japan. So that's where my teaching of languages started. And again, it was such a connecting point for me to learn about the culture from people who are willing to speak in English in Japan, and me as a teacher who's there to just help them speak and bring out their culture in a safe space while speaking a foreign language. So that's where my first interaction with foreigners and speaking a new language in a safe environment came to happen.
So even though you did not know Japanese that well, you were
Yes.
still able to connect with people through language by
Yes.
teaching them.
Yes. And that's the whole thing. I think it's more than the language. It's about the safe space you're creating, the environment where they feel like they are, okay to speak without feeling embarrassed, without feeling like scared of making mistakes, and where they feel supported.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest takeaway from me from any language learning experience or a language teaching experience.
Oh, okay. Speaking of safe space, I will ask one more question. How did you identify your students' language learning style or learning styles in general?
It comes out after a few sessions, how they actually learn. I observe how they learn. Like some of them, they want to absorb the language first, like in all of its forms, and like give them as many phrases. And then, they absorb it and then they want some kind of a structure later.
Okay.
But some, on the other hand, will want the structure first, a little bit of a structure, and then they would want to like explore more. That's how I find it out after a few sessions when they feel like adjusted and they feel like they've been exposed enough to the language to kind of play around with it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Their personality also comes out.
Their personality comes out and how the initial fear reduces. So it comes out and then it just subsides because they know that they can relax and they can ease into it.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be in anxiety about it.
That's where safety comes into play as well.
Yes, exactly.
That's your most important trait. If their learning style comes out after a few classes only,
Yeah.
how do you build that rapport in the beginning and how do you get them to open up for you? Because they're from a different country altogether.
Yeah.
And they're stepping out of their comfort zone.
Yes.
How do you get them out of their shell?
I just allow them to make mistakes. In fact, I encourage them to make mistakes and speak in a messy way, speak whatever they can. I encourage the action part. So once they start taking the action, once they start speaking, then looking back, then they can make sense of what they're speaking. But if they don't take the first step of speaking and they keep thinking about, oh, how should I say this exactly? And what is the correct grammatical way of saying it? Then it kind of slows down the speed of learning, I think, to quite an extent. And also, it leads to overthinking.
Right.
It leads to overthinking. And it's best that I just give them these basic phrases. And a lot of the times, it comes from their own requirements as well. Like, I'm in an office and I feel like I want to wish my coworker,
Yeah.
congratulations. So how can I say it? And then if they don't know exactly how they should say it, like the tone, the exact words, then they will never do it.
So you make it as easy as possible for
Yes.
them, not too technical.
Yes. And of course, they have like instant correction
Yeah.
from me, coming
Yeah.
from me in a completely relaxed, eased, non-judgmental, way where when they can make that mistake and learn quickly,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then just go ahead and speak in.
Got it. Do you think survival phrases are sufficient to learn a language? Or do you need anything more? And when does that come in?
I think survival phrases are a good starting point. And when you get the survival phrases, you warm up to the language. And when you warm up to the language, that's when you're like, okay, if I can do this, I can take the next step as well. Which is then going into a little bit more of the structure of the language. Like, okay, so how are the nouns placed? How are the verbs placed? Where should I put the preposition? Or in Hindi, postposition. Yes, exactly. Then the filling up can be done with the grammar. But then starting with that, I feel it just overwhelms them a little.
Got it. And could you tell more about the action part? So you've told me a bit more off camera about
Yeah.
how you encourage your students to go out and use the survival phrases. But could you give an example?
Yeah, for sure. Like with one of my students, Haruka she's from Japan, and she is also very keen on just using the phrases that she learns. So we went together to the local flea market, and after practicing some sentences about bargaining and asking basic questions, we just landed up in the shops there, and she started bargaining with the local vendors in Hindi. And then she was talking to them, asking them questions about how much it's for and
Yeah.
how please bring down the price.
Yeah.
And she actually got a discount on her own. That was just so amazing. And her confidence also built up after
Yeah.
that one interaction because she felt like she could do it. And also the feedback she got from them, from the shopkeepers, was amazing.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
could understand her.
They could understand her and they appreciated it. Like somebody from Japan or a different country has come and making the effort of
Yeah.
speaking their language. So that really helps.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why learning a new language helps you get into a country more, because they realize that you are putting in effort to understand their culture. They're more open to you as well.
What makes you learn new languages?
I think it started off as wanting to consume new media, but it transformed with the interactions I had with native speakers. For
Okay.
example, I got to make a lot of Japanese friends,
Yeah.
and that just made me realize I love talking to new people. I love exploring new culture.
Yeah.
And each interaction, like with Haruka, gave
Yeah.
me more motivation to talk to new people. So, for example, had I not had Japanese friends before, I would not have come up to you.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't be shooting this video.
Exactly. And how do you pick the language like which you want to use?
How do I select?
How do you select the language? Yes.
Now it depends a lot on the media I want to consume. So one major way I learn languages is through media consumption. I watch a lot of videos. There's a concept called shadowing.
Okay.
So when you watch for example, if I'm watching a Japanese video, I will repeat what is said. And I'll try to understand the grammatical structure, the vocab, etc. And I'll come through a lot of media consumption. So if I don't like the entertainment industry of that thing, okay. Oh, God. So now I'm into Chinese dramas. That's why I'm learning Chinese. So,
What was the first language you started learning? Japanese.
Yeah.
And it was because which
Anime.
media? Anime. That's a starting point for a lot of people.
In fact, like a lot of people, when I go up to them and speak Japanese, they're like, "Did you start learning because of anime?" Like, how did you know?
And so what is your, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you start the language learning process?
So I have a YouTube video on this linked. But there's a 6-step process. I start off with like hearing a lot of it.
Okay.
So I start off with the sounds and making my ears attuned to that. For example, you have some sounds in Hindi that are not there in Japanese.
Yes.
Like ch, So I need to get used to that sound so that not only can I recognize it, it becomes easier to speak it as well. So recognition is the first step to speaking.
Okay.
And then I start off with basic vocabulary that, like, I try to learn the first 1,000 or 2,000 words that will get me by in the language. And then I go on to grammar. It's like a map of the language. If I know the grammar, I can easily make my own sentences. That's why I personally haven't been a fan of survival phrases because for me, I'm a very structural person. So I need like step-by-step process.
Yes.
And like my goal is to speak whatever I want.
Yes.
So that helps me.
Yes.
But yeah, so pronunciation, vocab, grammar, then speaking immediately. So like putting myself in situations where I can practice the speaking. And
So how do you speak
Yeah.
it? Like with whom do you speak a new language?
so there are a lot of online voice notes
Mm-hmm.
where I can go on and talk to anonymous people from different countries,
Right.
who are also learning languages. So, for example, Hello Talk, Hi Native, those are some platforms where you can talk. And luckily, like we stay in a place where there are a lot of Japanese
Yes.
people. Just randomly going up to people
Oh, how nice.
and speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must really like conversation. Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert?
I am in the middle. I
Okay.
think we are the same. So I like my own space, but I like talking to you.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
suppose when it's related to your growth, like when you know that this experience talking to this stranger is going to help me grow in some way.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's why a lot of people shy away from talking to natives, because I've had an experience where I went up to a Japanese person and they didn't really want to talk. But at first I felt a bit bad.
Yeah.
But I realized that not everyone is in the mood to talk, and the ones that have talked to me, that
Yeah.
turned out to be a beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
So the pros of talking to different people much outweighs the cons.
Yeah.
People reject.
Yeah, that's true. But when has it not worked for you? Do you remember any time?
Yeah, so one time, like you have the survival phrase, and I practice this phrase where I go up to them and say the equivalent of, I'm learning Japanese, can I practice it with you? It's like straight up asking. I went up to someone and I started speaking, and they feel very disinterested, like they had the look. So I let them go. Maybe you have someone you
That's true. Yeah. Only so much practice and then you have to let them
my survival phase.
Yeah, that's so cool. Do you feel it's harder to start language or harder to stay consistent learning a new language?
I think stay consistent. That's the thing with everything. You can
Yeah.
start, but it's hard to stay consistent
Yeah.
because you lose interest. The problem with language learning is that there'll be an initial hike, say with the survival phase. But as soon as you get into the structured part,
Yeah.
it doesn't go. And so like there's a this bar that you have to cross. The moment you cross that, it's again like exponential.
Yeah.
It's like sticking through that down phase, but it's my like from my experience has been worth it. Like for me, staying consistent comes from having small goals every. So like for example, learning 10 new words every day or watching one video in Japanese every day. That will help me like stay consistent even if I'm not making a lot of progress. My goal is like, how do you input the language into your brain is you expose yourself a lot. Like there's this concept called immersion. So you're constantly, if you're that's how babies also learn. Like they learn because they're constantly surrounded. And we have to do that.
You think there's a difference between how children learn languages and how adults learn languages?
For sure. For example, in Japanese, there's this type of alphabet called kanji, and a lot of how children learn it is by writing and writing and writing. And they take 2-3 years at least to learn. Adults, you don't have that time. And as adults, you have a rational brain which you can use to your advantage.
Yeah.
But as a child, you're learning very fast because you're exposed to new things. But we have to rationalize things and make them logical to learn. So that's where the difference comes in that you can use to your advantage. So in this case, I don't need to learn how to write it because now I have a keyboard. So I don't need to write it by hand or learn it. I can use techniques to remember these and just recognize them. Goals. Make it suitable to my goal.
Yes. So we have more of our cognitive abilities have developed so much that we can use a lot of advanced techniques to learn languages and we can use them to our advantage.
Yes.
And what are the overlapping principles between a child learning a language and an adult learning a new language?
I think it would be the immersion part of. So, as a child, your parents, everyone around you speaks in that language, and you're supposed to respond in that language.
Yes.
So they speak without being afraid to make mistakes, which relates to what you were saying. In the first.
Yes.
So as adults, also we need to surround ourselves with that input, but
Yes.
also be not unafraid to make mistake. So
Yes.
a lot of people, they don't jump right into speaking only.
Yes.
They think that, okay, once I reach this level of fluency, then I'll start speaking to people.
Yes.
But the sooner you start,
Yes.
the better you become.
That's true.
Like
That's
with
exactly.
Haruka.
Yeah.
Learning.
And it really helps. One is that you really coax the student into speaking,
Yeah.
and you'll ensure them that this is a very safe environment for you.
Yeah.
And another is them drawing inspiration from, say, another person who's in their surrounding, who's speaking Hindi,
Yeah.
who's like their peer.
Yeah.
So peer learning, I think, also plays a very major role in inspiring them
Exactly.
to speak.
Hmm.
And it also helps when the student themselves up and says, yes, let's do this, let's talk. And a lot of students are like that I've got. Like Haruka is one of those people who really likes to talk. And looking at her, I think her peers also got inspired. Like,
Yeah.
if she can do it, so can I.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's such a beautiful combination of taking initiative and also being inspired
Yeah.
and risking it, like speaking despite feeling nervous.
Yeah.
Speaking despite feeling like I might embarrass myself, but still doing it.
Yeah, pushing
it's-
yourself. So, how do you incorporate consistency and conversations into your teaching, both in terms of the one-on-ones,
Yes.
and your community that you have?
Like with my community,
Mm.
I regularly put up speaking challenges.
Yeah,
Then there are a lot of the ones that are enthusiastic about speaking.
yeah,
They take up that challenge very quickly. And then looking at them, others who have been quiet, they also feel like, yes, if they can do it, so can we. And I really make sure to appreciate the efforts of the students who are taking that first step
hmm.
and speaking, even though they speak in a very broken Hindi and the language is not perfect, but they don't seem to feel scared about it. And I respectfully give them the corrections
Yeah.
about that, and they feel very happy about it, that at least we tried and now we know where we went wrong. And apart from that, I hold like quizzes about phrases, meanings of phrases, like how would you use this phrase, what is the meaning of this phrase.
Hmm.
And the one-on-ones, the way I keep them consistent is through staying in their context, because their context is especially why they came to learn Hindi. So
Yeah,
the why becomes very important.
yeah,
So, for example, if some student is coming to me because they want to be able to speak to their partner's family who are
Hmm.
Hindi speaking, then that's a very big why for them. So, keeping the content, keeping the study material relevant to them helps them stay connected to their why and helps them stay consistent during the lessons and throughout their Hindi learning journey.
yeah. That's very interesting because I've spoken about the why on my YouTube channel also.
Uh-huh.
So because like the way this 4 5 steps that I mentioned about my language learning, that the sub parts of it change depending on your why. So the
Uh-huh.
vocabulary you learn also
Yes.
changes depending on why you're
Exactly.
learning.
Right. And sometimes, as and when they're going along, they feel like they came to speak, but then they also want to learn deeper. They want to go deeper.
So they find new aspects of the language.
And for example, one student came to me just to learn probably survival phrases, but then he saw that he needs to learn the pronunciation in a deeper way. So for that, he needs to understand the alphabets. So then he started the Devanagari alphabets, and then that's another journey in itself. The
Yes.
pronunciation,
Then the nouns and the grammar.
and then grammar I throw in every now and then.
Mhm.
Not it's not like a fixed part of the class, but it's when they've already spoken that.
Hmm.
Then they go to the grammar. They're like, I see you. Now I see it.
now
You make
it.
sense of it.
Interesting. I start backward.
Yeah. That's another way of doing it.
Yeah. But do you intentionally try to make them see different aspects of the language rather than their why? Or does it come about naturally?
It comes about naturally.
Okay.
It's also nice to have like different usages of that same word, phrase.
Okay.
Because in Hindi, in any case, we have so many different contexts. It's a context-based language. Or something that I teach them for office use can
Yeah.
completely change, elsewhere. Like, theek hai, just the word theek
Yeah.
hai. If you teach that phrase, everything matters. Like, it depends on the tone, how
Yeah.
you use that phrase.
Like acha also.
Acha is another word. That
Yeah.
how you use acha, in which tone you use acha is
Yeah.
how it will be perceived. So yes, the 360-degree view of that of teaching needs to be there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you approach? We've talked about vocabulary, survival phrases. How do you approach pronunciation and grammar?
Pronunciation is in Hindi, it's very tricky because so many sounds, like you said before,
Yeah.
they don't exist
Yeah.
in their respective languages.
Hmm.
So I do try to take the support of like the common language, which is the bridge language, which is English.
Okay.
So there are many techniques by which we can use English
Hmm.
to bridge that pronunciation gap.
Okay. For example.
For example, there is this letter in Hindi, jh, right? So the way you can learn it is, for example, connecting two English words together, like dodge him. If you use these two words together, dodge him, you connect just the dodge him. So then you get the jh sound out of it. So that's how a non-Hindi speaker who also speaks English can understand that pronunciation.
That's interesting. You are making it relatable and visualizing it also.
And then he could connect, they could connect that, okay, this is the sound I'm looking for. Otherwise, they don't know what sound to look for.
And how to place their tongue, etc.
Then they have like unaspirated, aspirated,
Yeah.
retroflex, dental. And these are the sounds that look exactly same on paper, but when you speak, they come out of different areas of your mouth.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of one-on-one practice time with them, and a lot of like, you can also practice it by practicing two-syllable words. So if I'm teaching them k, k, g, then just two-syllable words.
Like kara.
Kara or khag,
Hmm.
dug, mug. So that's how they just understand the sound.
But that won't come out in a community setting.
That would not come out in a community, because here you need really focused one-on-one time and a lot of drilling of the language, of the pronunciation.